series. Today we have Professor Annette Hoelzer, who is a retired partner of BDO's Columbus Tax Practice with over 30 years of experience in public accounting. She now serves as the lead faculty at Franklin University, specializing in forensic accounting courses. As BDO's former non-tax partner for the Central Region, Annette developed expertise in nonprofit tax matters, providing professional services, conducting research, and delivering presentations on complex tax situations and topics. She has authored articles, including for a national nonprofit publication, and presented for organizations such as the Ohio Society of CPAs and the Ohio CLE Institute. At Franklin, Annette has been honored with multiple awards, including the undergraduate Robert L. Bailey Teaching Award and the Faculty and Staff Excellence Award. She holds professional affiliations with the OSCPA, ACFE, and VITA. Annette earned a Master of Tax from Capital University, a BA from Bowling Green University, and a certificate in forensic accounting from West Virginia University. I'm delighted that you'll be able to hear from this vital person in the Ross College of Business. I appreciate everything Professor Hoelzer does. And even though she mentioned VITA a little bit there, she oversees our VITA program, which has been in effect. We're in our 11th year, and we've served hundreds of individuals and saved them. I was able to support them in having hundreds of thousands of money, which is nice to get that in a tax return. Presenting this morning with Annette is Reina Sims. She serves as the AARP Ohio Columbus ASD. I'm having problems here with this. Outreach and Advocacy. She has served in this role since October of 21. For over 25 years, Reina previously served in various state, government, and community agency leadership roles that focused on minority health, community outreach and engagement, policy, and system change. She earned her master's degree in health service administration from Central Michigan University and her bachelor's degree of science in education from The Ohio State University. I just met Reina this morning, and you know, Reina, we have a lot in common, and so I'm looking forward to talking with you later. We have a Chippewa. I'm a Chippewa, and I'm also a graduate of, now they're called the Comets, but when we were there, Annette, it was called the Crusaders. So we're excited this morning to have this final topic. If you have questions this morning, please feel free to put them in the chat, and know that we will address them at the end of our session today. At this time, we're going to turn our program into the hands of Professor Annette Hoelzer.
Thank you, Lynchia. Let me try to get my... Okay, can you see that screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. All right, let me get it at the beginning. Okay. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and then I brought in Reina to give her the opportunity to speak to you about fraud, and I call this Fraud Uncovered Inside the Web of Financial Deception. So you've heard in the last few presentations from Dr. Martina Pong about investment strategies, but it's just as important to protect your nest egg. And I'm not talking about protecting it in how you invest it. I'm talking about protecting it against the fraudsters. Fraudsters are all over out there now. I mean, this is what people are using as their job. They're a fraudster for a living. And the fraud will impact everyone at some point. You're either going to know somebody that was defrauded, or you're going to be impacted yourself, or you may just have implications because of the financial implications of fraud overall. So I have put the presenter information up here. I have it at the end of the slides as well. I believe that they're going to be sending out the slides. But if you wanted to take a picture of it, you're welcome to, before I get into the nitty-gritty of financial fraud. So this is a slide put together by the Federal Trade Commission, and we've only got information from 23 right now. They still have to put together the 2024, but here are their top frauds that they've identified. Two of the ones that in particular we'll be talking about, but we'll touch on some others, is imposters and investments. Notice though here, this is what is just, it's appalling to me, but although this could give our students a lot of jobs. 2021 reported losses because of investment scams, 1.7 billion. But you go to 2023 and it's just in 2 years jumped to $4.6 billion. So almost 3 times as much. And we're seeing this type of jump across the board on frauds. The Consumer Sentinel Network, they looked at 5.5 million reports. Their top 3 categories: identity theft, imposter scams, and believe it or not, credit bureau and information furnishers, not furnitures, furnishers. What I want to point out on this one, though, is down here. Younger people are reporting losing money to fraud more than older people. And this may make sense because remember, they're the ones who were probably on social media and on the internet a lot more. But 44% of them reported experiencing fraud versus the 25% in the 70 to 79 range. But if you look over here, the financial impact is much greater for those who are in the upper ranges because they've got more for these folks to come after. If you're going after a recent college grad, they're not going to have a lot of money to go after. The scary part too is we're talking about, here it said 2.6 million fraud reports. We know that that's just scratching the surface because a lot of people don't even report the fraud. So what are the financial impacts? Well, we talked about, we've got the monetary loss. That one's pretty obvious. But then it's almost a snowball effect. It then leads into financial strain, credit damage, and you may even have recovery costs, but I will warn you, very seldom are you going to be able to recover the funds that have been stolen because they immediately, in most cases, go overseas. And so they're not obtainable. Your best bet is if you discover it within the first couple hours, then it may be able to be clawed back. But what we don't really talk about a lot and bring to the forefront is the emotional impacts of financial fraud. It's not just financial impacts. The emotional impacts can be even worse because those who experience fraud then have trust issues. They don't know who they can trust. Emotional distress. It can lead to mental health struggles. And in almost all cases, they at least are very embarrassed. And this is one of the reasons that you don't see a lot of it reported because they're too embarrassed to report it. And I think Reina probably will talk a little bit more about these. So let's get into some of the types of scams, so you have a better idea of what should I be looking for. Starting out with AI scams. I gotta move your pictures here. For AI scams, I've got 4 things that are listed under this. There's phishing, smishing, AI images, deep fake videos, and fake and clone voices. And we're going to look at each one of those. So, phishing, what is it? No, you're not going out to a lake and catching fish. Phishing is where they're tricking victims into clicking on fraudulent links. If you're working for an employer, you probably have been told, don't click on links that you don't know who the sender is. But here's another example of a phishing attempt. Most of us order stuff from Amazon, and if you're like me, at some point in time, you've gotten some kind of notification from Amazon saying that there's something wrong with your order. So here's such a notification. They're saying that there was a system error. So we noticed that you got charged twice, and so we need to refund it. But then we noticed that there's an error in your billing information. They give this reference code, which looks really legitimate. Then they tell you, click here to update your address. Yeah, well, that's the phishing right there. Because when you click there, it's not going to Amazon, it's going to wherever the fraudster is. So when you get something like this, never click on here. Instead, go, for example, here, go into your Amazon account itself. The first thing I'd do is look at my recent orders and so forth and see whether it says anything about a refund. If it doesn't, I'm probably going to just ignore it. But you could also call Amazon and find out from them, is this legitimate? I've had that happen as well. So other variations of phishing are smishing. What that is the same thing, only in text. They're texting you. Or vishing, which is calls. The things to keep in mind are, don't ever click on links from anybody that you don't know. You could call them and say, hey, did you send me this? But just don't click on those links. Don't give out personal information to those that you don't know. And don't answer calls, texts, etc. That you didn't already expect or you don't know. So if you guys are calling me and I don't answer, now you know why. AI images, these have just blossomed in the last year or so. So I actually picked this one up from YouTube because it's a video that's showing, I don't know, I didn't even look at the video, but I'm presuming it shows that this lion's going to save this kid. Well, first of all, I've been to Africa. There were no lions that looked this nice. Nice smooth fur, nice combed out mane, and no. So sometimes you can really tell that it is an AI image. But they use these for ads. They're going to show that something works well, even if it doesn't. Fake ID documentation, explicit photos, so where they maybe put the head of one person on the body of another, fake headshots, you name it, they're probably out there right now figuring out something else. Then there are deep fake images. And I will play this one so that you can see what I'm talking about. Deep fake images are AI generated videos. let me play it and you can see what I mean.
Second youngest son. He's suggesting it came out of nowhere. What we subsequently learned is it may have come from the former president or his legal team acting in bad faith. This is a deepfake example of what is possible with powerful computer and editing. It took around 72 hours to create this example from scratch using extremely powerful GPU. It could be improved with more computing time, but 90% of people cannot tell the difference.
Okay, so with the deep fake images, you can see it was, if they sent you that second one, you probably wouldn't know the difference. They're promoting fake products with those fake services. They're promoting potential investments. They may be sending ads on phones, and here's my deep dark secret. I played the games and stuff on my phone that are supposed, they're helping my memory, but they also have the ads on there. And those ads, I'd have to believe that the majority of them, if I were to order that thing, I would never get it, because they're showing things that are fake. They trick people into thinking that they're someone else. Oops. Then something that's fairly closely aligned is fake and cloned voices. And let me show you this video that I found on YouTube.
Here's an example of what an AI-generated voice sounds like.
This is the most advanced and realistic sounding AI voice generator called Murph Speech Gen 2. Go to murph.ai and type in some text, and then you can choose your voice. I'll read this text, and then the AI will mimic my speaking style. The Kevin Cookie Company bakes the best cookies in the entire world. Now let's have AI mimic me.
The Kevin Cookie Company bakes the best cookies in the entire world.
That is crazy. And it's also free to try.
So you can see how easy it is to get hold of these things too. Free to try. And I'm not promoting that. I have no idea about how that works and so forth. And I'm certainly not promoting committing fraud. But these things are often used in phone-based scams. The typical grandparent, grandchild scam, where now all they have to have is a couple of words that the person is speaking, and they may get it from social media or anywhere where the person has spoken, and they can record that, and then they run it through the cloning device or the cloning software, and they may have a call go out to a grandparent, and it sounds just like their grandchild, where they're saying, you know, I'm stranded in Europe and I need money. Send me money. And of course, they tell them where to send it. And you know, amazingly enough, the things they want the most are going to be gift cards, or now they're using a lot of cryptocurrency. My suggestion to avoid this is really a family-wide suggestion, is that the family have a secret word or phrase or question where if a family member receives one of these calls, they use that secret phrase or whatever it is, or question or whatever, to ask, and if the person on the other end doesn't know what you're talking about or doesn't know the answer, you can pretty much believe that it's not even real. This has been going on since I can remember. My parents got a call about my sister over 30 years ago, and I went running up to where her apartment was. Supposedly something was wrong. And the thing is now they've got the means to really perfect it. All of these AI items help to make
Here's an example.
scams much more believable. Jenny, if you could put the IC3 in the chat for people so that they can get it. IC3.gov is where you can go to report scams like this. I'm also giving you, the FBI has a public service announcement about ways that criminals use generative AI, and this is the website for it. So hopefully that will help you if you either are experiencing a scam or you just want to learn more about it. Now moving on to some other types of scams, and some of them are somewhat related. We've got imposter scams. The more common types are going to be the grandparent scam and the romance scam. So 20% of people that are targeted by these scams in 2023 lost money, and the median loss was $800. In this type of scam, the scammer pretends to be someone you know or someone you should recognize, whether it be a famous actor. I mean, people out there think that they really have been contacted by a famous actor wanting to have a relationship. A red flag on this is they may try to scare you or to offer you a gift or an investment opportunity. Text or email is the most common for the first contact. And Reina will be talking a little bit more about some of these. But just to give you an example, Barry Heitline was a 76-year-old retired lawyer. So, high IQ probably, knowledgeable, pretty astute, but he got conned into thinking he was part of a government investigation. He had logged into his 401k and he couldn't get in. So he logged in a few days later and he did get in, but it came up with a message to call the 401k's fraud department, and it gave the number. So he calls the fraud department and they said, we've got this big crime going on and we're trying to investigate it. We wondered if you would help investigate it. And they had him doing all kinds of legwork and making withdrawals from his bank accounts as part of this scam. But all he was really doing was withdrawing money and giving it to these thieves. They kept telling him, this is a big case. We want to stop this whole big ring of people. Well, in the end, it cost him most of his retirement savings and about $740,000. So some of these can be really hard-hitting. Phone-related scams. We all are pretty familiar with the robocalls, but I'm going to talk to you about that in just a minute, give you a hint on those. The malicious apps. One of the most recent is the QR codes, where they send out a QR code that really goes back to the fraudster's site. And it may be they sent out an email saying, if you're interested in more information on this, click on this QR code. Then there are, and the other thing, I'm sorry, is they'll sometimes take stickers with the fake QR code and stick them over the real QR code so that people are really just going back to their site. And then SIM swapping, that's where they're reassigning your number to a SIM card in a phone that they control. Back to the robocalls. We all get them. We probably get 1 million of them a week. And what I recommend is, And you're going to answer the phone if you do answer it. And they're getting trickier about how they're doing it so it doesn't show up as spam. But you answer the phone and they say, "May I speak to Annette Hoelzer?" Well, I would not say yes. Definitely don't say yes, because they may record that yes, and all of a sudden you just agreed to send them $1,000 or something. Instead, say, "Who is calling?" And then they're probably going to tell you, and it's probably really a robocall, but I just hang up. Don't even go any further with them. That's really the only way you can protect yourself on that. Check fraud. This is really becoming more rampant lately. You may have seen in the news where postal workers are getting robbed of the master key to the mailboxes. So where this happens the most is where there are banks of mailboxes, and the postal worker uses the key to get into them. Well, they steal the key, get into the mailbox, or if they want to do it the hard way, they'll go from door to door or house to house and just steal the mail out of the mailbox. So they'll steal the mail, find any checks that are in there. Then they wash those checks with a certain chemical that's going to remove the payee and the amount. They're going to write in a payee that they want, and all of a sudden, where you were sending little Sammy, your nephew, $100 for his birthday, you're sending the fraudster $1,000. So because then they take that check, deposit it, they're going to withdraw it as soon as they possibly can, and it's gone. To avoid it, use electronic bill pay whenever possible. If you have to write a check, use black gel pen. If you use the gel pen, that seeps into the paper and they can't wash it off chemically as easily. Drop checks off at the post office. I know that's a pain. I myself would have to admit I don't do that. Retrieve the mail from your mailbox daily. And when you are traveling, make sure to have the Postal Service hold your mail. Very, very common lately, cryptocurrency and investment scams. They may impersonate celebrities to try to get you to invest in something or to invest in cryptocurrency. A common one now is they will call somebody and say, "We're going to hold somebody for this ransom." The ransom is you go to a store anywhere that has a cryptocurrency machine, and you start feeding in your dollars to get the cryptocurrency. They may also use popular websites to lure in victims, and they're asking them to send money or share a login or invest in a project. The Better Business Bureau considered the combined crypto investment scam to be the riskiest scam in the 2023 BBB Scam Tracker Risk Report. So this is getting much more common as well. Online purchase scams. The median losses are $100, so not big, but they do a lot of them. Over 40% of the scams are reported to the BBB as online purchase scams, and over 80% of the people reported falling for the scam. They take your money, they never send the product or service, or even better, they may use what they call triangulation fraud, where they purchase the item that you want with somebody else's credit card, and then you're going to pay them for that item. The red flags are going to be, you have prices that are just too good to be true. It lacks any detail as to the purchase. High pressure, like they'll say 1 day only. I know, again, on my phone when I'm doing my games, and it comes up with these ads, it'll say last day. Well, it's been the last day for the last 6 months. Always pay with a credit card, because then you could do a chargeback. There are also employment scams, and those are things like where you have fake employers. They'll target people that are out of work, and they'll use hooks to try to draw them in. And the whole basis of the scam is they're using the information those people give on employment forms to be able to scam them. And yeah, those people may not have money, but they may be able to use a social security number or some other information to perpetuate other scams. They may tell you you have to buy certain training materials. You send in your money and you never get them. Or they send a large paycheck and then ask for the excess back, and then that large paycheck bounces. Finally, one of the jobs could be that you are going to receive money and then you're to send those funds to another account. What you are is a money mule. And money mules, unfortunately, they've made you also a scammer. You're breaking the law. So I'm not going to do all of these because I'm running out of time and I don't want to take up Reina's time. A couple of them I want to go through. Just what would you do? And you can see these if you get the slides sent out. But what would you do if you opened your email and you find an email from your bank asking you to verify your account details? To do so, you're to click on a link. What should you do? And the choices are: click the link and enter your details, make sure your account's safe, call the bank using a phone number not in the email, reply to the email asking for information, or ignore the email. Banks never contact customers this way. Now, D probably is somewhat correct, but I would recommend B. I actually had this happen a couple weeks ago, where I got something from my bank and, call this number. Well, you never call the number that's in the email, because that's going to go right to the fraudster if it is a fraud. So you go look up, Google your bank's number and call the bank directly and see whether it was real or not. Also, the bank may want to know that this is happening. If a caller claims to be from the IRS and threatens you with arrest, this happens all the time lately too. If they threaten you with arrest if you don't pay immediately, what should you do? Well, my suggestion is hang up and you can report it to the IRS. You can always go to, if it's something to do with the IRS, you go to irs.gov and then search fraud, and it'll take you right to where you have to go in order to report fraud. Final one: which of the following is a common sign of a romance scam? The person claims to have a successful career. The person refuses to meet in person and frequently asks for money. The person sends small gifts before asking for larger financial help. And D, they often share their personal and financial struggles openly. Well, it's all of these. And that leads into Reina's part, because the AARP works very much with these fraud situations. So I'll let her tell you about that. Reina, you're on mute.
Technology, great. Okay. So thanks so much, Annette. I appreciate that. I am going to go here and share my screen. And we will start from the beginning. Okay. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate it. And as was shared earlier, I am Reina Sims, Associate State Director of Outreach and Advocacy for our State of Ohio AARP office. And in my role, I serve as our state's fraud lead. So as Annette was sharing all this great information, all these wheels kept clicking in my head. There's so much that goes on with fraud that sometimes it can seem overwhelming because they come from you at every angle, at your door, by phone, on your laptop. It's amazing how this is literally their life's job. We're paying into our retirement system and they're literally robbing us of that. So it's been my honor and privilege to work with our staff and volunteers and now Franklin University on how just to remain educated and vigilant and get as much of this information out as possible. So part of what we do at AARP is to share resources because just like this session is today, as getting out the information as far and as broad and as wide as possible is so important. So what AARP does is we host a Fraud Watch network. We have a website that is about all things fraud. So the information that Annette shared today, we have from a number of different of our government entity partners, the FTC, the FCC, the FBI, just a central location about where one can find this information. And then it comes down to where you can select your state and have some localized support. Also available on this website is an opportunity to call for help. Because a part of what Annette was sharing and a part of what it happens, people often feel like they're in this alone. They feel like, oh my God, how could I let this happen? And if by chance they report it or they talk to someone from their family, people go, how in the world did you even fall for that? And so the person, feels guilty or they feel less than or they feel like, not their best selves. So one of the things we have to do is change the narrative, how we respond to ourselves, because again, these are scam artists. We are survivors of scam. We don't even like to use the word victim. It still is used because we are victims of fraud. However, we come through it. And so that's part of changing the dialogue with ourselves. That's part of what we do at the helpline. Let people know this is not your fault. We also let people know you have got to report this, no matter how small or unfortunately how large this particular scam may have been. Reporting it may help tie different scams together. There may be a particular multiple occurrences of an individual type of fraud in a given area. And if your call happens to be that one tie, you never know that connection that you may be. Always report it. And unfortunately, while we would be able to help you provide resources and telephone numbers locally to where you can get support and report, just like Annette said, sometimes getting those funds back is utterly impossible. I attended a fraud conference last year, and as an example, they placed a map of the world, a flat world map on the screen. The initial location of the fraud was in Ohio. By the time that the telephone calls and the text messages and the emails were linked to various outlets as they were going, the screen, you almost couldn't differentiate one line from the next. And the calls all wound up going overseas with, several of the individual, small people working in Ohio who they were able to catch. But the overseas folks and that money had long since been gone. So what we do at the helpline is to help provide people with an opportunity to report so that you could never know, just that one report could stop a particular type of fraud from going on in the community. And never, depending upon what type of fraud, you could be that small opportunity where you're able to stop a transaction or stop someone from coming to your home to be able to stop a fraud. Because if you can spot a fraud, it is possible to stop a fraud. So call that, to share that helpline is critical. It also connects people to support, which I'll talk about a little bit later, in terms of just comfort in having a sounding board. One of the things we also recommend as we go out is to have folks sign up for our Watchdog Alert emails, which can also be found at our Fraud Watch Network website. Those will give you a heads up on what's going on locally, what's going on nationally. And a lot of what's going on nationally, of course, is crypto scams at crypto kiosks. I'll touch on that a little bit later also. But having these Watchdog Alert emails come through just gives you that, and it also helps you stay vigilant. Sometimes we get so comfortable in just moving about our day, and we move so quickly that we don't take the time to read things as well as we should sometimes, which is how sometimes those email scams, get through. We don't take time to make sure that as we are answering the phone, do we recognize this number? So these Watchdog Alerts just help us keep fraud at the forefront and helps us stay vigilant. So signing up for those Watchdog Alerts, which I have also myself, just helps, make sure it makes us stay vigilant. And one of the things about that, especially in terms of emails, what we always share is to take the time to slow down. Even today, we've got, all of us have things on our to-do list. All of us have emails coming in probably even as we speak. And we want to move through those things to be resourceful, to be productive. But sometimes catching one thing will help promote an email scam. So for example, some of the things that we do at AARP, even internally, is we are sent, we get tests that come through. And it lets us know, hey, you passed or you failed. So it helps us to slow down. So I've implemented, that slowing down process within our home, and I share with all of our family, and anytime I speak, slow down and read some of these emails, because what a criminal will do is do a page that looks exactly like Chase Bank, exactly like Amazon. And most recently, we were actually, AARP had someone put up a fraudulent website for our very own challenge grant opportunity, which connects communities to resources to help for any number of things. But they put up a fraudulent webpage. And so our national office caught that and communicated with the community accordingly. But, even, organizations as large as ours, are constantly bombarded with criminals trying to mirror our page because we are a trusted entity. So just slowing down, hovering over the logo in an email will also help to let you know. Hovering over because if it doesn't click and go anywhere, that's a static photo. Chase, banks, government agencies, you click on that logo, it goes to their government website. Hover over the email address. If this says this is a message about your package delivery and we need to re-enter your payment information again, and you hover over that email about who it's from, and it's some long string of emails that doesn't say Amazon.com, you can delete that. So there are little things you can spot. Spelling errors are a big one, grammatical errors. Sometimes I crack up at how the things that they send with different, fonts and different horrible grammatical errors, you're thinking, is this real? Am I being spoofed? But it's just they do these, and so often they have bots that don't always, of course, they just send things out. But again, if someone's not paying attention, it only takes one person. And imagine that happening multiple millions of times over in a day. So that Watchdog Alert will give you tips like that on what to notice, how to slow down, and take that time. You can also listen to our AARP, The Perfect Scam podcast. And unfortunately, it shares a number of good tips, but it also shares the personalized stories of people that have been scammed in the hopes that people learn from that. You may have heard about one last year in Pataskla, right up the road from me, where there was a woman who was contacted from the Social Security Administration. And that contact said her account had been compromised and individuals were using her account information to commit fraud. And they had just enough information from gleaning information from her, website or Facebook page in her web information to let her know that, oh, they do have my information. They kind of gained her trust. And as she would answer questions, in that question, how they phrased it, gave them more tips and clues on how to keep her on the phone. So as this scam progressed with phone calls and emails, they got her to confirm her social security information, and they got her to, as a means to keep her account from being further scammed, they had her withdraw all of her savings and her money that she was drawing on because she had the opportunity to retire early, withdraw all that money, and then buy gold. And she did it. And so now there's people coming to her house to pick this, pick up cash, pick up, gold. I mean, so that gold bar scam goes beyond the past, but that happens more often than people think. But that type of scam happened repeatedly. But they had just enough information about her that they were able to skim off of her emails, skim off of her social media presence, and then steal outright, because you can buy lists on the dark web, that got her thinking. So one of the things that she said that she wished she had done was hang up and just call the Social Security Administration. Because here's what will happen. The Social Security Administration is not calling us individually by phone. They don't do that. They will send you a letter, and you can call yourself and sit on hold and talk to the Social Security Administration. But how often do we get calls from a government organization about our one account? There's millions. There's not enough folks on staff to be able to do that. Always end those calls and go directly to that particular government organization. So the Perfect Scam podcast shares stories like that, shares the red flags. It shares ways that people have gotten help and how they've come out of that self-blame, and how their family has, been educated to not blame them as well, and how they're working to change the dialogue. That Perfect Scam podcast it tugs at your heart, because people have lost their homes, people have lost family members, it's broken up families, scams have, and so scams affecting you emotionally, physically, and financially is just devastating. And that Perfect Scam podcast shares those stories with you, so that you can learn from those mistakes. And what we also provide are the opportunity to have free AAR volunteer speakers. Our volunteer teams are the face, the heart of what it is that we do. And they will actually go out into the community or schedule virtual presentations that focus on different types of fraud. We talk about romance scams. We talk about introductory fraud presentations about what fraud is, the difference between a fraud and a scam. We talk about where to report it. So our volunteer speakers go out and provide either a half an hour or an hour presentation in churches, businesses, community organizations, senior centers, community centers, wherever there's a need, we go. So please do contact my office if you'd like to schedule a presentation. As I mentioned earlier, the AARP Fraud Watch Network, this is the landing page for the Fraud Watch Network. We try to make sure it's visual, user-friendly, and that people can go here and get directly to information. So as you were to scroll down this page, it does exactly what it says. It helps you stay informed with tips. That support is critical, because what we do for folks for support, I talked about earlier, there have been people who have ended their life because they were so devastated by fraud that has happened, where we've had callers call in to report just how devastating this has had an impact on them. What if this gets out? I'm actually a professional at a financial institution. How could I have had this happen to me? And have, unfortunately, thereafter, you either hear through the news or you go to reconnect and the family's taken over the email account and the person has ended their life. This scam landscape is devastating. So we want people to be able to have support. So we have a telephone number that folks can call and just have a support group. Talk amongst one another. They are not alone. Gives tips again on what people have done to overcome that personal blaming and the community shaming. And again, all that starts with dialogue. This conversation that we're having needs to take place with our local law enforcement, needs to take place with our financial institutions, so that we're all on the same page. And it gives people a voice to let you know that your voice matters when you report these crimes. That support group that I was speaking of uses the acronym REST, Resilience, Strength, and Time. And these are virtual sessions that people can take on their own time. They absolutely help to lower stress and give people a safe place to share their stories and then get help. But so for reporting resources, also, we want to let folks know that we work with the Ohio Attorney General's office often by having discussions like these on our teletown calls or having public speaking engagements together, but they are absolutely our partner. So we often share this, information about where people can go. And then lastly, just giving you my information, and it's just been my delight to speak with you this afternoon. And I want people to feel comfortable asking questions, but most of all, I want you to stay vigilant. I want you to slow down and read emails and texts. If you don't recognize the telephone number that's calling, don't answer. If you have to mail a check, use a cashier's check. Use just those types of checks that have a receipt. There's a paper trail. Pay first, though, electronically, just like Annette said. I would say do not put money in your mailbox. Do not put money in your mailbox. Don't mail your check from your mailbox. I don't know how many times I can say that. But that is so important, because that you put that little red flag up on your mailbox, that just says to a criminal, hey, come look at this mailbox. I got some stuff for you to look through. One of the other things, make sure that you report it. I do want to put something in the chat. I'll stop sharing, but want to put something in the chat for you, just a resource for a fraud map. You'll be able to visit that map and be able to put in your zip code to see what's going on locally in your area. People report there, share what's going on. It kind of gives you an idea about what things to look out for in your own area. So just be vigilant. And again, with me being the state lead, my husband cracks up. I'm like, I don't believe anybody. Everybody's a suspect, because you constantly stay in this area, but it just has helped me slow down. It's helped me educate our son, definitely the elders in our family, and then anyone, because anyone can be a victim of fraud. So I just appreciate your time, appreciate the opportunity to be here. I would love to continue the work together. And I look forward to answering any questions anyone may have.
Reina, one question. Do you have to be a member of AARP if you've been a victim or ended up on the other end of the fraud? Can you go to AARP even if you aren't a member, or if you're not even an elder?
100%. And what a lot of folks don't know, you only have to be 18 to join AARP. But in any case, that's not what we're here for today. What we're here for today is that you getting help. You can be any age and be defrauded. So the resources that we have, the Attorney General's office, if you've been defrauded, you can absolutely reach out. You do not have to be a member of AARP to use any of these resources. And that's also not what the time will be spent when you call either. It'll be spent to focus on you, what's happened to you, to give you resources, to give you comfort, to answer questions.
And one person posted a question, it talked about experiencing some fraud and who pays for all this. We all do, because all of our prices at the stores go up. They've got to build it in somewhere. We're paying for government workers to fight the fraud. And believe me, the fraudsters are always way ahead of us. So,
and we pay for it out of our pockets, because the majority of the time, unfortunately, and it is so maddening, but the majority of the time, those funds are gone. Because what will happen, if you, for instance, are a victim of a banking scheme, and you have given approval by saying, yes, you've agreed to transfer funds on the basis of what this scheme has been presented, the bank will say, you approved that transaction. And so with that wire transfer, let's just say you approved that wire transfer. So the bank is like, you said yes. And so what we're working on is just to work with financial institutions as there's a way for there to be a stopgap. There's got to be a way for there to be an opportunity to either draw back or stop a payment before it leaves. And so there is legislation around that at the national and the local level. And our advocacy director who we have here, Khalifa Williams, her team and I are partnering. There is legislation that's being introduced in our state that will help to better monitor those kiosks, and that it will be able to make sure that there are, multiple on-screen warnings, multiple opportunities to have someone call to question, is this right? how long have I been sitting here? You know, multiple warnings to help a person to continue to think about their transaction. There's also legislation at the national level to make sure that when we're working with financial institutions, that there is a way to stop a transaction and pull it back. Once it leaves, it becomes more difficult and darn near impossible. But we're working with financial institutions to broaden that legislation also at the national level. So lots going on legislatively to help prevent some of this.
One of the questions, this is probably the last one we'll be able to take, but is what do banks do to track bank fraud and transactions? Banks all have some pretty hefty fraud departments and money laundering departments, anti-money laundering, I should say.
Right.
And they spend a lot of time trying to track this stuff. The problem is somewhat their hands are tied. And this is what Reina is referring to, legislation that's going to try to untie their hands a little bit, because if I go in and I say I want to transfer this money to this person, even if they think that it's, or they may be sure it's fraud, and they may tell the person that this is fraud, they still want to do it because, you know, this is their love interest, and they need the money. So they can't say no right now. They have ways of turning it over to other government agencies to highlight it. But I have a family member that this happened to, has Alzheimer's, and this love interest had convinced him that, you know, she needed all this money, and his investment advisor kept telling him, and I saw the emails after the fact, unfortunately, because they couldn't tell me either. This is another thing. They're trying to get it so that everybody can have somebody else that is named in conjunction with their account, so that if something looks odd, they can be contacted. But right now, it's not that way. They couldn't contact any of us to tell us that this was going on. And they tried everything, and he lost $400,000. So
yeah. I think within that, one of the biggest things, as Annette said, is to have a relationship with their financial institution. As our parents age, or as we have family members who may need assistance with their financial planning or their banking, is to build a relationship, you know, to make sure that your financial institution where you go, they know the two of you or the three of you. Someone is named on the account. They can also be contacted if there is something that's outside of their customary transaction. You know, is it a larger amount than usual? Is it more frequently than usual? Is it smaller amounts for more frequently than usual? So building that relationship will allow that person to say, you know what, if you can wait just a minute, but they can go back and make a call. Because not even having someone with that person is always the key, because there have been opportunities where there has been a caregiver to accompany that senior, and the caregiver has been the one that is taking money from that senior. So in an instance that we had over the scam podcast, the banker knew to call her daughter of the person who had the account. And she said, this is not an actual transaction. Do not complete this transaction. And she was able to do some things by phone and then coming to the office. She was local, but having that type of relationship, because unfortunately, sometimes it's those that know us or are taking care of us that are actually the ones that are also taking advantage of us. And so it's important to have trusted folks around you and build those relationships with financial institutions where possible.
Okay, I think that's probably time. Alencia, did you want to say something?
You know, this was a great session. It's definitely needed. We all are experiencing fraudulent activities on a heightened level. And as I was monitoring the chat, you know, sometimes it is just slowing down, reading everything correctly, making certain the spelling's correct, and making certain it's what it is. But it's amazing with those phishing calls or the calls that you've talked about. They sometimes are very demanding. And I know that they did it once for the banking institution that we're at. And I says, well, thank you. I'll call the institution. Well, no, I am it. And they kept going on and on. I said, have a great day, sir. And when I called the banking institution, we found out that I knew it was a scam type situation, but they were able to take the number and put it down so that when other customers called in, they knew it. And they did their back end. So we do just have to be very vigilant in protecting our assets. It's all about empowering our financial current state so that we can have the future. I don't see any other questions. I appreciate your time and your knowledge that you share today. This is a topic that can go on and on because it is something that
It go on and on.
yes, it's not going to stop. It's only going to get worse.
Exactly.
But I do appreciate everyone joining us today. As you know, or may recall, our powerful, unmistakable legacy leader series begins the first week in March 4th, I believe it is. And that is our series honoring Women's History Month. And I think we will continuously post information about that. This session will show up in about a week or so in our event section of the Leadership Center. Jenny can put that link in the chat, and you're more than welcome to go back, listen to, or reconnect with our presenters today. Thank you all, and continue to support the Leadership Center. We also have a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page, so feel free to follow us and we'll be able to continuously share information with you. Have a great rest of the day. Stay safe
Thank you.
financially
Take care,
and
everybody.
physically. Bye.
Bye-bye.